everybody, my name is Stevie Marchant and this is my woodshop. Today we're going to be talking about the router, bits and the different kind of routers you can get. If you're new to this channel, I post new woodworking videos every Monday and it's just teaching the very basics of tools, how you use them, what they do, and then later on, once I've covered the tools, we'll be going into some projects as well. So if you'd like to see all that, please subscribe to this channel. It really helps me out if you do. So let's get to it. Okay, so this is my router. As you can see, it's a Bosch one. They're all pretty much the same. Depending on what different brand you get, will affect the pricing, what features they have and whatnot. So as with most routers, this is a corded one. I don't think you can get many cordless routers apart from the palm routers, handout routers. We'll get into that in a second. So the very basic features of a router is it will have a base that plunges up and down. So it will sit on your workpiece like that. It's got the handles here. Handles with a safety trigger like there. So you won't be able to pull the trigger in unless you have your thumb on an extra button here. Move it in there. It'll have a speed control dial, and the speed at which your router runs depends on what kind of wood you're going through and how deep you're cutting. On the underside you have a collet, which is this little guy in here, and that's the nut, the little grabbing device that holds your router bits in place. So you'll untighten the collet, slide your router bit in and tighten it in so it's gripping it and it won't fall out. And this little lever on the back here adjusts the plunge depth. So that controls how deep the router bit will go into the wood. Also, a very small safety feature on the front, you will have a plastic shield which covers the router bit, so as the shield is up, you're operating it like this, and the chips, it stops the chips from flying into your face. And another safety / cleanliness feature that most routers do have is a dust extraction port. So that slides in there. Mine's got two little screws that you undo. If you see that. Two little screws here, and that slides into there, screws onto those pieces, and you can attach a vacuum there. So it sucks up the chips as you're working and stops it from going all over the place. And also, most routers, if not all routers, will come with a fence as well. And these attach onto the side here. You'll have two clamps, and then the rods just slide in. And what that does, it allows you to clamp them down, and it allows you to run the router alongside of your workpiece or a fence, and will let you cut a nice smooth straight line along your workpiece. It's very handy. These are adjustable, you can set it to pretty much any depth. And the cool thing about these is you can turn them upside down and then slot one of these into the side. So that's a little pin that you put on there. And if you want to cut a circle or route out a circle template, you poke that in the centre of wherever you're cutting, and the router will spin in a circle around the pivot point. And another feature of the router is with this little measuring stick here. So it'll have a little gauge there, and as you plunge the base down, the little red mark goes up the ruler so you know how far it's plunging in millimetres. And to lock that in place, you can twist the knob here. So that means if you have to pop the router back up for whatever reason, you can easily, knowing that that is in place, plunge it back down again until that hits the stop, and you'll be perfectly where you were before. And as well as plunge routers like the one I've just shown you, you can also get palm routers like this ever popular Katsu one. I've seen a lot of these on Facebook and YouTube because they are so cheap, and it's pretty much everything you'll need from a trim router or a palm router for £30, which is probably why they're so popular. And what these do Again, it's corded, but you can get cordless ones of these. They just have a battery on the back. And what these have, rather than a plunge base, these will have a base like this where you can set and clamp down. So really it's for, as the name suggests, trim router. It's for trimming edges of pieces, so you'll never really need to move it up and down whilst you're routing. So you set it to the depth that you need, so run alongside your workpiece, clamp it down, turn it on the front there, and then it goes bzzz around the edges and makes a little profile. So like I said, £30, and what you see is what you get really. It's a motor with a base that spins, on and off switch, and a speed setting, and that's all there is to it. So that palm router that I've just shown you there was about £30 from Amazon. The Bosch plunge router is £70 roughly. It was a gift to me from my dad, so I think it's about £60–70. If you want to spend more, you can get routers for about £200–300. Yeah, so an all singing, all dancing Makita, DeWalt, Trend router, about £300, and they'll have micro adjustments on there, so you don't have to rely on your up and down plunge motion with your hands to set the depth. Right, so the next thing I want to talk to you about. What in the world? Oh! Coffee time! Right, so now let's talk about router bits. So, the router wouldn't be able to do anything if you didn't have any bits for it. Kind of like a jigsaw. If you don't have jigsaw blades, your jigsaw's not worth anything. So first of all, you get things called profile bits. And what a profile bit is, it'll have a little bearing on the top to run along the side of your workpiece, and it will create a profile, the same shape as the blade, along the edge of your workpiece. So this one there, as you can see, it's turned upside down. You'll have a nice little curve with a square lip on the top. This one is a round over bit, but as you can see, it's got an extra little lip on the side, on the top there as well. So that would create a round over with a lip on, if you desire. That one's sort of a side groove, so you can make a little curve. What the hell is that? So it makes a little cup along the side. And then this one is just a smaller version of the other round over bit there. If you lower the bit just where the shoulder meets the wood, it'll create a nice round profile. So instead of sanding around the edges to make the edges nice and round and smooth, you can just run a round over bit over the corners, and it will make it nice and round. And you will also have flush trim pieces like this, flush trim bits. Obviously that was a smaller one, and that one's a bigger one. And you'll notice that, again, it's got a bearing along the top, so that means if you have two workpieces that are clamped together, or say a template, then the bearing would run along the piece that you want the top piece to be shaped like. So say you have a template, you've got a shape cut out that you want your wood piece to look like. So you put the template along the bottom, have the wood piece overlapping on the top, and the bearing would run along your template and then cut the wood to the same shape size as your template. So it would be a copy of it. And you can also get template cutters with the bearing on top of the bit, so that you can put the template on the top rather than having it on the bottom. And next on the list we have groove bits, which are these funny shaped ones here. So instead of having a flat top or a bearing, the blade goes along the sides, up and then back over again. And what I'll do is that we'll cut a V profile in the wood, sort of like a juice groove if you want one. We've got a round one here that would make a round little divot in the wood. And that's just for making, say, like a marble track, maybe, or juice groove. So yeah, there are the groove bits. And last but not least, probably the most commonly used one for a plunge router are straight bits. And what they do is just routing grooves into boards or lettering, pictures, things like that. And you can get single bladed router bits like this one. It's usually the very small ones that have single blades, up until these huge ones with 2 blades and therefore, as you can imagine, cutting quite wide grooves. You'll notice this one's quite blackened. That's because they spin extremely fast and quite often they do burn the wood if you go too slowly. It does say on the side of this one the max speed for it is 24,000 RPM, and that is a hell of a lot of rotations. Okay, so one very important safety point to be aware of with router bits is the direction of the spin. So it'll always spin clockwise, and you'll know which way that is because the face of the blade here will always be cutting into the wood, spinning that way. So you will always need to make sure you're pushing the router in the direction of the cut. So if you're cutting the piece of wood on this side, you want to make sure that as it's spinning, you're moving it forward this way. Because if you move it backwards towards you or to the left, and it's cutting that way, then what that'll do is it'll grab onto the wood, and as it's spinning, and it will just move the router on really quickly, and it'll take you by surprise. So always cut into the wood. So as the router bit is moving that way, you want to be making sure it's cutting along the wood in that direction. And be mindful if you change the side of the wood, if you're doing the other side, then it'll be the other way. So you'll need to bring it this way, because if you pull it towards you or if you push it away while it's spinning this way, it'll act like a wheel and just grip it, and it will zoom off. Not only will that will damage your workpiece, it'll cut you off guard, it could fly out of your hands, and it's very dangerous, so be very mindful of that. Okay, demonstration time. And here is the router. So to put the bit in the router, first we need to press this button down and turn the collet around until we feel the button depressed. There we are. So the button will clamp the collet down, so you won't be able to turn it apart from this nut. So we pop the router bit into the collet there. Then with your finger still clamped down onto the button, turn the collet until it's hand tight, and you grab the spanner that came with your router. Tighten it nice and tightly, as tight as you can, and secure it in place. So when you take your finger off the button, that should spin with the collet. Now please bear in mind that I have not got this plugged in, so make sure it's unplugged when you're changing a router bit. Okay, so now the router is plugged in, I have my ear defenders on, and we're going to make a nice round over on this wood here, and I've clamped it down by screwing it onto my workbench so it's not going anywhere. So first, place the faceplate onto your wood, use the lever at the back here and plunge the base down until it's where you want it to be. So now it's in line where I want it to be. They've very kindly put an arrow on the bottom of the router here, which shows you the direction that the router bit is spinning. Now, apologies, I seem to have lost the footage of me using the router, but just imagine that it was extremely loud. Okie dokie, and here is the round over edge on the corner. So a nice smooth rounded edge. I also did a Roman OG on this side here to demonstrate that, and also a nice little curved squiggle in the middle to show you a straight bit in the router. You can do any shape, any direction you like with a straight bit. I say you can engrave names, you can draw pictures, writing, anything like that with straight bits. one of the things you need to watch out with a router is it's very messy. So I've used a vacuum to clean out this bit, but you can still see some sawdust in the middle there that I can't get out. Also, if you take a look around here, take you with me, you can see that there is just sawdust all over the place. And that's that for the router. Thank you very much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a like if you did. Please subscribe to this channel if you want to see more woodworking videos. I release new ones every Monday, so it's all about learning the very basics of woodworking tools so they're not a big scary thing when you come to use one. And I will see you again for another woodworking basics video next Monday. Bye bye everybody.